Hi, I'm Britt,
And my name is Alyssa.
and this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
You are in for a treat tonight because we are gathered around a cozy fire with a hot beverage in hand with a superstar guest tonight. She is a practicing medium clairvoyant in Austin, Texas, who helps people discover their abilities through mentorship. I first discovered this guest while listening to the Night Owl podcast way back in 2019. I would like to welcome to the show, Sara Reeves. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, ladies. How are y'all?
Hi,
Good.
Sarah. Welcome.
I'm going to try really hard not to fangirl out too much tonight because it's been my dream to have you on the show. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, thank you for reaching out. So I appreciate it. And here I am.
Yay!
I love it.
So I first heard you on the Night Owl podcast. And for any listeners who have not listened to the Night Owl podcast, I'm going to give a little gist of how the show goes. So the host, Stephen Belyeu, will travel to notoriously haunted places and then gather details about the hauntings happening there, interview people, and then investigate the history of the place. But I find that the creme de la creme is when he brings Sara in after he's done all this legwork. Sara comes in knowing absolutely nothing about the location, the hauntings, nothing. And with absolute precision, you will walk in and just start talking to the spirits. There's a guy over here. There's a little girl upstairs. And it's all everybody he's talked to, like one of example, I think it was a restaurant that had a stair going up and down. This one server there kept getting their hair tugged. You walk in, oh, there's somebody on the stairs. She likes to pull hair. It's just like with exact precision. So it's pretty incredible listening to you on the podcast. So that's sort of the first flavor that I got from Sara. But I kind of want to dive in and start from the beginning. Could you sort of let us know how you first discovered your abilities?
Well, I can't say the word discover because it was just something that I've always been able to do since I was a kid.
Okay.
And fortunately for me, I grew up in a family that didn't, they believed in stuff like this, right? And kind of in an obscure kind of way, right? The way that our culture was kind of like, yes, that exists. Now shut up, go to bed and say your prayers, right? So I was like, okay, fine, right? I'll do it. Okay. Right. I'll do that. So I think as I kind of got older and life kind of happened, I had a really interesting life. Life kind of happened. I had my kids and I was like, I have no room for any of these spirits, right? I was like, nope, go away. See you later, right? I've got kids I got to keep alive and kind of moving. And so I just kind of created this block. And there was a really rough kind of emotional space happening in our family around 2012. And this is when, basically shit hit the fan, right? Like in the house, things were just moving around, stuff was happening, but my family, like my husband is really big on like these things. He understands that these things happen, but it's like my children, especially one, my daughter, she was not the kind of like, I see things, I believe in like, she was like, no, she came out. She was like, Mom, there's some weird things happening in the house, right? But she told me like, I'm preparing you for some crazy things, right? And I was like, what's going on? And, she started explaining the things that she was seeing and that was moving around. And then we all had like group encounters of stuff that was happening. But what I didn't realize that it wasn't just in the house, right? I was also having these encounters outside of the house. And so my husband was the one that reached out to Stephen Belyeu's team at the time. They were a paranormal group that would come and do investigations at your house. And they came during that time and they investigated our house, and that's how we met. So they were the ones that were like, it's not your house. You're the problem. And I was like,
oh my God.
Damn, he's absolutely right. And it still didn't sink in until maybe about 6 or so months later, because I was in this new job during that time. And about 6 or so months later, the security guard from the building that I go into, actually, he said, hey, I know you were here really early because I usually got in like around 6. And he goes, let me show you something. I was like, sure. So he walked me over to the security cameras and he was like, I'm going to backdate some of the stuff that's here and let you look at something. And I said, okay, great. And it shows me walking into the building. I said, good morning. And he's there. And he's like, hey, how's it going? I walk in, I push the elevator button and I look and I actively say good morning to somebody that's not there. And he goes, no, wait. And so the elevator door opens up. I go in, he changes cameras and he shows me the inside of the elevator. And I'm standing like this and you see the floor like light up and my floor light up, like another floor and my floor. And I'm not even touching the elevator buttons. And I'm just kind of standing there and I'm gabbing away. Oh, blah, 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 talking to somebody in the elevator, actively like looking at them, talking to them. The elevator doors open. They walk out. I say, hey, how's it going? They close. I get off on my floor. And he goes, you have been doing that every day since you started working here. He goes, just about every day. It's freaking me the fuck out. So I need to know, like, what are you like? Are you having some kind of psychological issue? Right? Like he was trying to really figure out, like he was very concerned. And I was like, no, I like, it's a man. Like it's a man that I'm talking to. And I explained like, what do you look like? The name on his badge, like everything. And he just kind of was like, okay. And he went back and had to do some research because he hasn't been in that building very long.
Yeah.
And he talked to somebody who worked there for a long time and said, oh yeah, that's the guy that worked on this floor. And he had a heart attack and died at work.
Oh my gosh.
Died at work. So it wasn't until he came back with me with like, hey, I have some answers for you and some pictures, right? Is this the person that you're talking? And I said, yeah, that's him. He's like, he's been dead for like 3 years.
Oh my God.
3 years. And I was like, perhaps Mr. Belyeu has a point. So
when
I
you
had
got
to
in the
start,
elevator,
like,
you didn't realize that this gentleman was.
I didn't even realize that he wasn't
a
a real person. I didn't even know he was a real person. I wasn't
Like, what would you talk about? Just normal
everyday,
things?
like the normal elevator chit chat. Oh, how's the weather today? How's it going? Blah blah blah. Blah. How are things? This and that. I knew about his wife, right? And I knew about his son. And I like, oh, this and this and that, which was funny because I knew current events of his wife and his son, like things that were happening now, not things from before. So it was really weird that we were having that conversation and somebody who knew him from the building, actually, I had to talk to her and she was like, no, that's a current thing. That's not something that happened before he passed away. So we had this really, then I freaked out a couple of people from work, but it is what it is. But it is what it is. So that security guard after that was kind of like, there's that weird chick, right? Like that's going on the elevator again.
Well, that is one hell of a way to find out you have an ability for sure.
I mean, like I had it, I just ignored it. And then it presented itself like, here you go. Ignore me now. Right. Even, like it was like if I knew the answer and I was still blocking and it said, okay, here you go. Universe said, you're going to do this. I'm like, okay.
What you're meant for.
So can we back up just a little bit then? Well, actually a lot, I suppose. So you said you knew it was happening when you were a kid. So you'd be a kid in your bedroom and would there just be people there that you would talk to? Or
my first encounter was with my grandmother. We grew up in, she was in Mexico, so we would go and visit her. And, we grew up going to her house and she would make us breakfast and it'd be awesome. And there was just one time when I was laying down and I looked up and she was making us breakfast, but there was somebody else in the kitchen with her. And I noted the weird thing that she would pause to kind of remember what ingredient was next. And the person would point and she would go, oh, that's right. And then she would put it in. Right. And I was like, that's weird. And after a little bit, I kind of got up and I walked into the kitchen because she was making tortillas. And let me tell you, homemade fresh flour tortillas, it smells so good with a little bit of butter, right? And I was like, if I'm the first one up and I beat all my siblings, it's going to be great, right? So I got up, I walk over there and I asked her, I was like, ooh, can I have one? And she's like, sure. She put some butter on it. She rolled it up for me. And I was like, who was the lady that was here talking to you? And she was like, what lady? And I'm like, yeah, the lady. And I was like, and I turned and I was like, that's like she was sitting right there. And I see the lady and she goes like this to me and she's wearing like a black veil over her face. And she just said, shh. And I was like, eat my tortilla. What the fuck is happening right now? And I was little, I was maybe about 6 or 7.
Wow.
And then fast forward maybe about a month, I was, in my house in bed, middle of the night, and I feel the bed sink. Right. So I kind of look over to see, you know, because sometimes my mom would sit at the edge of the bed or something. So I look over to see who it was. And it was my grandmother. She was sitting at the edge of the bed. And I was like, what are you like, kind of like, what are you doing here like in the middle of the night? And then I see somebody's hand just come up over her shoulder. And it was that lady that I had seen in her kitchen. Right. And she said, your mom is going to be upset. She's going to come and she's going to wake you up. She's going to be upset. I want you to be a good girl. And I just want you to listen to her. And I know she's going to be upset, but everything is going to be okay. And I said, okay. Right. Had no idea what she was talking about. And I said, sure. Right. She's like, okay, go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep. And a little bit later, my mom woke me up crying. And she said that my grandmother had passed away. And I was like, how? And I kind of like looked around the room, like, how is that possible? Right. I just saw her. When I was going to talk, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything because she was really, really upset. And I still didn't understand like what it was or what happened until we went to her house. And in Mexico, you know, the funeral services are fast, right? Very, 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 very fast. And they put her, they'll put her casket and then she's in there. And then they put like a plate of glass over it in her house. And so we were all kind of sitting there. And they were all talking about her like she wasn't there. And I'm like, okay, right? Like, because she was floating around the room, listening to everybody kind of chit chat and making faces when they were saying something stupid or coming and standing next to me. And so was her mom, like my great grandma. We're just walking around. And
so that's who the other
lady was. And I didn't realize who she was until that day, because somebody had older pictures, and she has the one picture of my great grandma with the veil, like she was wearing a veil from church. They put the little veil things on, and the veil was pulled back, and I could see her face. And I was like, that's the lady that was in the kitchen. So those, you know, and that was when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I always saw something weird going on in the house.
And you never told your mom that?
Oh yeah, my mom knew. My mom knew later. Yeah, I told her later on because we had another relative that was a curandera that worked in Mexico, and she already knew that I could see. And so she taught my mom's things, and she taught us as, you know, kind of like her grandchildren would teach us little things here and there. So she knew that I could do this herself. She even said, you can see these things, you know, that's that. And we watched her do like bring in spirits or remove spirits or do things. And I could actually see the things that were going on. And it never really, it was just part of whatever she was doing, right? It never really scared me.
So this is in your bloodline then. It's part of the family. Oh, that's
part of the family. So it was really odd and cool at the same time. But
so you had the realization that these people you were seeing were actually past, or if you have another better word that you like to use, please.
No.
Okay. Interject.
They passed away.
And then at a certain point you realized maybe that this was not for everybody to know, and that you needed to kind of rein it in to try to be normal, quote unquote.
It was interfering. So like in my situation, I grew up in somebody else's home, right? In my family line, this is something that does exist, but they don't talk about it because we do have a family member that had schizophrenia. So for me, that was something that if I said that in where I was to like other people outside of the family, they would think that I was crazy. Right. Yeah. And they would be like, let's medicate her. Let's do. So my mom was like, you do not tell anybody but us that you're seeing these things. Cause I believe you. I know that it's happening. I know that it's there, but you do not say anything about it to anybody. So it was a very difficult thing for me to balance once I got into like junior high school, that I just said, nope, I'm not going to deal with it. Yeah. So I just erased that part. So for a little while, right, I was just building walls, building blocks, building walls. And I would see him, I would just wouldn't interact. I would just kind of like, it's not there. Until like my daughter, she had a imaginary friend, right? Imaginary friends. And I knew always where this damn imaginary friend was. And my husband was like, well, how do you know? I'm like, don't sit in that chair. Right? Right? You know what I mean? Don't sit in that chair. Don't sit in that chair. Don't eat that piece of popcorn. Don't have like, like whatever it was, like, that's not for you. It's her imaginary friend. Leave her alone. Her imaginary friend's there. And he was like, how do you know where this imaginary friend is all the time? I'm like, I just can see it. Right. And it wasn't that I could see the imaginary friend. I could see the energy that was in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something there. And she was actively looking at it. So I knew that it was something. So just leave it alone. Right. Don't mess with it. But she got older and she created a block. So she blocks everything out.
Oh no.
That is so fascinating.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. If you ever want to be quiet as a medium or psychic, invite my daughter over. Everything gets quiet. It's great. Right?
Oh, interesting.
She blocks everything. She's a huge energy blocker, and I love that about her.
And I don't want to divert too far, but I do want to ask real quick. Do you think that this family member who had schizophrenia actually had schizophrenia, or were they seeing things?
They had both. They had both, because what scared me is that I could see what they could see sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
Right? They'd be like, oh, there's this. And I'd be like, that is a thing.
Yeah.
I can see it too. Right?
Wow. How confusing. That had to have been so
it was hard. It was
confusing and hard. Okay. So then you fast forward to, like you said, 2012, things are happening in your house. Things are moving. If essentially the spirits are no longer accepting that to be ignored. They do not want to be ignored anymore.
They do not want to be ignored. They do not.
And then you meet Stephen.
Well, so I didn't realize that Stephen and the team had been doing this pre-podcast.
Yeah, they had an occult team. They had an occult team that was going out and investigating houses and doing all this kind of stuff. And it was literally the whole team that we started off for the podcast. So it was, it was Franklin, Alexis, Stephen, and Tao. Right. Okay. So it was all four of them that came to the house, and they were setting up equipment and doing all that kind of stuff. And it was really good, a good sense of who they were right when they came in. So
at this point, was Alexis, I know that he's more sensitive than other members of the team. Was he the one that sort of was like, I sense the energy, or I feel like you really were
at the time
a missing piece of the team.
Alexis at the time was the one that was studying everything, because his way of working in the spirit world is completely different from mine. Mm-hmm. So he can't see the way that I see, but you can go to him, and he's very knowledgeable about how the spirits work and when you're working with them and the types of ritual styles that are out there, or the types of cultural styles that are out there that are going in there. He has a lot of information. There's a lot in that brain, right? A lot of information of the occult, of the spirit world, of working in anything in metaphysics. He's really, really knowledgeable, him and Eric, right? So he came during that time with all that knowledge, right? With a lot of that knowledge. Now he's a little bit better. He's a little bit better where he is now. He can like see energies and experience them a little bit better because he's been practicing all of this time. So that's kind of where they came in to that. And they were just kind of like, all right. And then for like 5 years, I didn't hear from them. Right. Really? So I didn't hear from them for 5 years, but it was okay. Because during that 5 years was the time that I was like actively gaining my own knowledge, practicing, working with energy, kind of getting comfortable with understanding how to identify what was a spirit versus what was a human being, right? Oh, yeah. And how to kind of create boundaries, and reaching out to some of the older stuff. I had to reach out to even family members like my aunt, my sister, my aunts, like everybody, to kind of go like, remember this, and try to piece together the things that we were taught when we were younger, because our older people have already passed.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of just trying to put together and finding information about what we did as a family, as a culture, what I do as myself, that's part of who I am, and then all the cultures that I'm from, right? So it's kind of like bringing in all of these styles and finding out what works for me, what doesn't, really understanding why I can see certain things that other people, like they might be sensitive like me, but how come they're not seeing this thing? Or really had to understand like realms and vibration and like all these things. So it took me time to put it all together. So when Stephen reached back out to me to be like, hey, how's that thing going with you looking at, spirits and stuff? Why don't you meet, he tricked me. He was like, why don't you meet me for coffee? And
that was the first time.
Let's go to Spider House. Tricked me. He tricked me, the little shit. But
so that's the podcast episode. He had you come in. They'd already done the research. They'd already recorded.
It was the first episode.
Let's see if she can if this checks out.
If you listen to it, he only has like one thing that I say, and he edits it in different places because he wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. So he didn't have anything to record on by the time he started recording. It was like, so he piecemealed it all together. So yeah, I didn't know exactly what he was doing. He's like, do you mind if I record something? And like, yeah, sure. And he was just like, we were there for a few hours, just kind of back and forth. Wow. So it was just kind of fun because it was like, I didn't quite understand what he was
I thought that maybe
Making me
you'd done a
do.
few different things before the podcast, but no, he just straight up threw you headfirst into this thing.
Yeah, he
You
did.
probably
And he
blew
said,
his
"Hey, do you want to
mind."
be part of this? It's great. I already recorded it." I was like,
my God.
"Sure."
You did probably blow his mind because the last time he saw you was just at your house having stuff happen
Issues.
there. And then you come in. I mean, that episode, you're straight up like, there's a female. You were like, you knew their names, like such detail that you know every time you go in. Yeah, I bet he was flipping
And he's been
out.
tricking me ever since. He's going, "I got this great place." I'm like, "All right, well, you let me know where to meet you." And it's like 4 blocks away. And you're like ushering me through the back alley of somewhere to get me into the spot. Are you getting anything? And I'm like,
it's so
yeah, I don't know why I'm getting all this stuff, but yeah. So it's fun. It's fun for me. I enjoy this. Other people might not, but I don't mind it if they're like, "Hey, we're going to go somewhere." And
It sounds fun as long as it's not terrifying. Like, I think a lot of people would be scared to be in your shoes and see people that aren't there.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to say I don't get scared. I'm going to say I just don't respond the way that others would respond. Right. I give myself the chance to ask, should I really be scared of what's going on? Right. And wait. But, there's times where, I walked in there and went like, what did you just do to me?
Oh. How long do these typical sessions, like when you're going in through the door for the first time, like I know it's got to be at least a couple of hours that you're in this location, right? Or does it vary?
Well, with Stephen, it was longer. We would be there maybe about 3 or 4 hours, depending on what was going on and how big the place was, because the place is really big. But after about 4 hours, I run out of steam, and I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. So we typically would go back sometimes just to make sure and kind of, get more information if there's more information to get. But typically my first pass is usually the right pass. So it's maybe about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Right. The second pass is usually just getting other little things, or them going, "Hey, can you concentrate on this one space? Or can you give me a little bit more information about this one thing you said?" And so then I could tap back into the energy, and that's the way that I get it. But usually my first pass is the right one for me.
Yeah.
Pass.
You mentioned earlier that you were training yourself to discern between real people and spirits. Like the fella in the elevator, you had no idea that he was a spirit or a ghost. What do you call it? Do you have a preferred? No,
I don't have
energy. What is the giveaways now that you've identified it? Like what?
It depends, because he was such a strong, he was a strong spirit himself, and he understood how to work with energy. So he knew how to push the buttons on the elevator. He knew how to do these kinds of things and be corporeal. It was very easy for him to be full bodied, right? What I needed to pay attention to was little details. Like they can't hold full body for a long period of time. So there's things that would happen, like maybe like the hairline would erase, or the feet would start to disappear, right? Yeah. Or the hands would be more translucent than prior. And I wasn't really picking these details up. Yeah. Right. Until like I really had practice and went, oh, okay. Cause it's kind of like watching like the pixelation that happens like on the TV. If the pixels aren't right. Yeah. And you kind of see this, and that's kind of like looking at that and going, oh, okay. That's not a thing. It's not a person.
Sarah, after you realized that the person in the elevator wasn't a real person, I mean, physical person, I should say, did you continue to see him, or he kept visiting you? Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
That's why the security guard goes, "There's that weird lady still talking to that dude," right? And I still was. I still was going to not say good morning, and I still was, letting him do stuff. I would just stop him from lighting up the buttons.
Okay.
The elevator. I'd say, "I'll do it. What for?" I'd put it on, so that I would push it, because I didn't want other people, like, because the security guards can see all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, I don't want shit just magically lighting up by itself, right? It's weird.
That was very gracious of the security guard to come to you and show you and give you a chance, because
I think he was trying to figure out, do I need to physically restrain this psychotic lady?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like,
is she having a mental breakdown? Is there something wrong? So,
so interesting.
Maybe he was just nice. He was just nice. To, like, maybe we just need to take you to the hospital or something.
So I'm going to backtrack to Night Owl times when you go on these, what am I calling them? Outings with Stephen to these haunted places. One of the techniques that you use is sketching. Can you just explain to us how this works and how does it sort of help you open up, or is it just like you're getting these visuals and you feel like you need to document them?
No, it's more for the sake of explanation. It's hard for me to go, okay, like it's green and it goes like this, right? It's easier for me to just draw it out to see what I'm looking at, but it also helps me drop energy. So like if there's something there that I'm not supposed to pay attention to, I'll kind of quick sketch and then put a question mark by it, or if I get a name or something, I just kind of put it. The thing is, it's not an exact, right? When we're receiving information, it's not rational. It's nonlinear. So I'm just getting pieces. And so it's like playing charades, like the best charades game ever, right? I'm trying to get like the information. So I'll try to move information that kind of doesn't make sense and shuffle them on my page to try to create what the story is, or give me a way to visually map it together. So that's what I'm doing when I'm sketching. It lets me connect better, but it also lets me drop things that I don't need, or drop it when I don't need it at that moment, and then pick it up later when I'm somewhere else where I go, oh, this goes here, right? So that I know where the pictures come. So it's really trying to understand nonlinear messages and putting them onto a rational space for me to be able to put it together. That's all the sketching is for, right?
Gotcha.
I do admire.
Do you keep the sketches that you do?
I do. I have them. I have like 2 notebooks full of sketches. Yeah.
So is it? Sorry, I was going to say, it's not necessarily always someone saying something. You just, you'll see a situation. Is that
right?
Like,
so if we think about how you and I connect, how you and I are communicating, like right now, it's really cool because we're on Zoom and we can see each other, right?
Right.
So the communication that we can use, you're hearing my voice, you're seeing my body language, but your mind is going, what would it smell like being in that room there? Right? Yeah. What would it be like to be touching, like to see like the tactile space, but you're still reaching out with your energy, and I'm still reaching out with mine, because we want to tactily touch somehow energetically. This is what we use here in the physical space, but I use the same thing in the spiritual space. That's what all those clairs are for, right? If you're looking at clairvoyance, clairsentient, hearing, or clairaudient, all that stuff, that's all your 5 senses, that the same way you have them here in the physical plane. They're the same.
Okay.
So I have to use all 5 senses to receive or see information, right? So some things I visually see that are walking by, some things I see in my mind, or I hear it in my head, or hear it from outside, or I can tactily feel it and go, there's something on that side of the room. I use the feeling to try to fit the picture, right? So everything that I do is to try to create everything in each sense. So I can pretty much use all of my senses very well, even though my clairvoyance is probably the highest. I can see a lot. I can see in my mind's eye, or visibly see energy moving in and out, or full apparitions moving about, right? Like I can see those kinds of things. But sketching helps me grab the other senses that I don't necessarily pay attention to all the time.
Got it. It's so fascinating. I wish I could see what you were seeing too, and hear and feel it all.
I was listening to recently the Gaslight Theater episode.
Oh yeah.
And
I love that place.
You walk in the door and immediately you're just like, okay, this guy he's trying to tell me you're like, hold on a minute. And you're, like talking and he just keeps trying to bother you. And I am envisioning you just spirits being like, she can hear us. And I imagine you're just bombarded like a movie would be, where it's like The Sixth Sense, where the little boy can like, oh my gosh, he can see and hear us, Is that something that is just around you all the time? Like and is it something where the spirits acknowledge like, oh my gosh, she's looking at me, she sees me, like, and then yeah. How do you manage that? How do you deal? Just a lot of excited spirits.
Yeah, I acknowledge and build boundaries, right? Actually, it's funny that you mentioned the Gaslight Theater. That was quiet for the longest time because we did that one during COVID.
Yeah.
Right? So it was the first time we were wearing masks and had like our individual microphones and all this craziness, right? Well, the spirits in the theater were used to having people there all the time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, nothing. Right. So as soon as I
They were
walked in, it was like,
jazzed.
and I was like, whoa, chill it out a little bit. Like, I know it's been a while, and I had to really explain, like, they were like, what happened? Like, what happened to all the people? Why aren't we getting all this stuff? Right. So I had to sit there and just kind of like explain, like, this is what was going on. Do you remember the Spanish influenza when we had to wear masks? And it's the same kind of concept. And, having to explain and visually kind of show them in my head, right? Like what was going on. And so it was really interesting. So this is, for those of you who like to ghost hunt out there, you need to be cautious, especially if you don't understand, if you have an ability, that you go to these places that have been, they've been quiet, they've been random, they're out of the way, and the spirits have never had anybody to talk to. That's not good. Right? Yeah. That's not a good thing. You are going to experience things. Yes, but it's going to be 10 times worse if you're disrespectful when you go in there, or you start, screaming at them or doing stuff and they haven't seen somebody for a really long time. You're going to have an experience. It might not be a good one, right? It might not be nice.
Does that make you really angry when you see these quote unquote ghost hunters where they are trying to aggravate the spirits?
Yes. It drives me crazy. That, and people who own maybe buildings or something like that, where they actively do have spirit things and they purposefully, they give them positive reinforcement for being ugly to people who come in to visit, because that's what they want. Yeah. Right. And I don't like that either. So there's a lot of things, we've got to be respectful to that spirit space. It's kind of like, I always do it this way. Just imagine some random stranger walks into your house and starts asking you, what is your name? Show me your face. What are you doing? It's your house.
Yeah.
It's your house. And they're just walking through it like you're not even there, right? You're not even there. This is the same concept in the spirit world. So when they walk in there and they're yelling at them and they're being ugly with them, you're going to get some great shit on TV. That's going to be fantastic, right? You're going to get, screaming and yelling and telling you they're going to kill you and all these wonderful stuff. You might even get scratched and attacked, but it's because of what you're doing to them, right? And that's not a good way to work with the spirit world. It just isn't.
Have you met a spirit who has scared you? Who, like, can they physically harm you? Is there something that they could do to you? Like torment, I guess, like never shut up. That would be torture.
I've met a spirit that likes to, that's a little bit of an asshole. He's the one at the tavern, right? Walter. He's just a little bit of an asshole. But he does like to torment me if I'm in there or anywhere close to there, and he'll send me visual pictures of him doing ugly things to the people that I'm with. Like we went once, it was just me, I think me and Stephen and kind of like a group of other people that kind of we went and it was a really busy day at the tavern. It was just insane. And the moment I walked in, I was just consistently just bombarded, and it put me in a sore mood. So I know that there was one fan going, wow, Sarah's a bitch, right? Like, it's like, sorry, right? But it was just consistent, and he kept showing me like he was decapitating Stephen, or Stephen choking on something, or there was a person that we knew that was with us too, that he was killing him or he was dying, and like all of these things, and like I'm gonna do all these crazy things, and I was just like angry till I finally just said we need to leave, because I'm gonna like getting even more mad. But he was also feeding off of the energy of all the people that were in there. So it was making it harder for me to be able to like build that boundary.
Block it out.
Block it out. So he's the only one that I've come across that has been purposefully that way. Yeah. And then I've had the guy from, the scream, I called him the screamer, that I kind of picked up at Spider House. He would just yell at me just because he wanted to, right? Like for like months, until I figured out how to get rid of him, right? Till I was like, no, we're not going to do that. And it was literally just constant. Like I'd look over and he would just go, he was beating in my face. And I was just
he end up coming home with you? Like from his, oh God.
So I struggled for a couple months before I finally just like got rid of him, right? I got rid of him.
So when you say get rid of him, did you expel him from a realm? Or you mentioned realms earlier. I guess, are all spirits accessible? Every person who has passed, are they accessible to you? Yes. Or are there different levels and realms? Okay, so
Yes, they are. The difference is those that are here are still on this physical plane, right? The ones that stay here, that are ones that are like haunting your house or doing something, are in this physical plane. And the way that they connect is completely different than somebody who, you know, who passed, who like went where they were supposed to go. Like they left and they went where they're supposed to go. I can still connect with them, but the connection is not super clear because they're further away, right? They're a little further away. So to bring them in, it takes a little bit more time to be able to get to them. But once they're connected, it's like they're in, and you can, you know, work with them and talk to them and that kind of thing. It's very difficult. And so I've always said the difference between reading a person and reading a place, right? Reading a person is much more cloudy. There's more emotions kind of involved because that person is emotionally attached to maybe a specific spirit that may not have anything to tell them. Right? Yeah, and it's really hard to be like, oh, I know you want to talk to your Aunt Judy, but your Aunt Judy doesn't want to talk to you right now. Right? Like, I'm so sorry, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like she doesn't want to come, and I don't summon spirits because I feel like that's rude, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm always like, look, think about them, bring that, and think about what you want to ask or talk to them about, and let me see if they'll come in, right? And if they come in, I'll read what's there. That kind of stuff. But yeah, you can connect to anybody who has passed away. It just depends on where they are, whether the connection is strong or not.
Have you had a spirit come to you and they're like, I need to tell, you know, my daughter this thing. I need to tell it, like, and then you have, like, what position does that put you in? Like, do you contact their loved one, or how?
It depends. Some of them have been dead for like hundreds of years, and you're
like, your loved one's not here.
So I'm like, your loved one's dead, right? And not in the same plane as you. So, right, what do we do with that? I just take the story.
Okay.
Give me the story. Tell me what it is. Somewhere along the way, it will come up. Like, I'll have a conversation with somebody and it will come up. I just kind of feel like I'll have that conversation with this other person. The story comes out and the story gets told again, and the story will get told again. And somewhere it will go where it needs to go, right? It'll land where it needs to land. Yeah. That's kind of how it works. But I've been in situations like I got Holocaust at our HEB, our grocery store. Alyssa, our grocery store is an HEB, right?
Okay.
So I got Holocaust at the grocery store, and I was shopping. I was getting my breakfast stuff for work, right? I was like, I'm just going to get my little yogurt, right? And my thing and my Topo Chicos for work. That's what I was in there for. And I see this lady, like, she's coming, I'm going down this way and she's coming up this way. And I see a man with her, and he just locked eyes with me. And I was like, no, sir. No. And I turned down the aisle, right? I was like, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that. And I came up another aisle, and God damn it, she was coming down the aisle too.
He like wanted you to like talk to her.
Right. He was just like pointing, like, go right now. Talk to her right now. And then he came up to my cart, like got in my face, and he was like, no. And I was like, I'm like, HEB, she doesn't know me, right? Like, here we are. I'm going to walk up to the HEB. Here comes this weird fucking lady, right? So I walk up and I'm like, I know this is going to sound really weird. And she was like, what? Like, what? Like, what's going on? And I was like, okay, your dad wants me to let you know that your sister's going to call you right now, and she's going to tell you that your dad passed away. And then she just looked at me like,
oh, shit, Sarah.
He needs you to go to your mom before and tell your sister not to call her, and you go to your mom and you call your sister from there so that she can tell your mom. And she was like, right? Her face was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That
right?
is
She started getting angry.
Yeah.
She started getting angry, and then her phone went off, and it was just her.
Oh my God.
And she just looked at me, and she picked up the phone, and she was still mad. Like, I can still see it in her face. And she was still mad, and she answered the phone. And she was like, and she went quiet, and she was like, okay. She said, okay. And then she just kind of looked at me, and her whole face just started falling apart, right? She was just, and I was like, okay. And I was like, just hang up she was like, don't call mom. I'm going to go there right now. Right. I'm going to go there right now. I was like, perfect. Now hang up the phone. Right. Like, and so she hangs up the phone, and she's just standing there. I was like, okay, cry a little bit, let it all out of your system. You're not by yourself. Do you have your keys? Yes. Do you have your purse? Yes. Put your phone in your purse. Okay, let's go. Leave the cart here. Get the fuck out of here. Like, just go to your mom's. Go to your mom's right now. And she's okay. And she just walked off. Right. Perfect. And I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck was I the one who had to say that? Great.
Oh my God.
So I saw this lady months later. months later. I thought, I'm never going to see this lady again. Doesn't matter. She's going to be like, this
Yeah.
was the weirdest thing, this crazy lady at the HEB, right? Like I thought it was going to be like a story.
Yeah.
And so she told somebody. No, I see her months later with her mom at that same HEB. And she goes, Mom, that's the lady. And I'm like, I hear it behind me and I'm like, that's the lady. And I turn around and I was like, fuck. I'm like, oh my God, they're probably going to beat the shit out of me or something's going to happen. Right. And they came up and they talked to me and they were like, and she was like, thank you so much for doing that. If they would have told my mom that, it would have, she, I guess the news made her sick. So she passed out.
Oh my
And
God.
so she had like, somebody was home to like, something happened, some medical thing happened to her during that time. So she was there to be with her mom when that happened and to get all the things and everything. And, the lady just hugged me and she was like, if you see him again, do you see him now? And I'm like, no, I don't see him now. And she was like, okay, well, whatever. And how do we get a hold of you? Right. So I gave them my card and I was like, go forth. But it was weird because I didn't think I was going to ever see them again. Right. Yeah. But it was nice to know that they, why I had to say that,
they were so
right?
grateful.
To understand why. And she admitted, she said, at first when you said that to me, she goes, I was so mad. She goes, I could have taken you. And I said, oh no, I saw it. I saw how mad you were. She goes, until the phone interrupted whatever it was that she was coming across her mind. So,
oh my God.
I have that. I have that pull where spirits want you to do it now.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a place where I can honor it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It'll be weird. And you just got to get used to, people looking at you like you're weird. But normally anybody I've ever approached or talked to, they've never been like, here's this fucking crazy lady. Like it's never been that. It's never been that.
That is a huge bomb to throw on somebody.
Well, we joke about getting a rogue psychic reading at Trader Joe's because I don't have an HB, I'm like, but now hearing that, we're like, oh wait, I didn't ever like consider that it could be bad news. I don't even know what we expect, but like,
I feel like an accident or something really quickly because none of them were expecting it. So it must have been an accident that even he was like, holy shit, I'm going to go.
Yeah. Wow. As far as the people who are on this plane still, you said, is that necessarily a choice? There's people who went where they're supposed to go. And then there's people who are stuck. And it even sounds like the people in the theater may be stuck in the theater because they're not really aware of what's going on in the outside world.
No, they're purposely stuck. They want to be there, right? Okay. They want to be there in that space. And there's millions of reasons why they would want to get stuck. Either they just love the environment, or they enjoy being in that space, or they came upon it and there was other spirits there, so they stayed. Right? That kind of thing happens. But typically it's a choice. They stay there. It's an option for them to not move on, because they themselves don't want to let go of something, right? They don't want to let go of this world. They don't want to let go of a thing. They don't want to let go of their family or fear, straight up fear, right? Straight up fear. They don't know if they're going to be accepted. That's one of the biggest and most common things that happen. Like, are you sure that they're going to want me? That I can move forward and it's going to be okay. Right. That's the biggest fear that comes from them. And I think that's a hang up, right? It's a hang up from being human. We don't, we deserve things. And even scarier when, if the concept of a source, right, of something big, you discover it and you're like, fuck, like, do they really know how horrible I am? I don't want to, right? Like, I don't want to go in there because we automatically negatively judge ourselves. Right. And so we automatically think that that's what the outside source was going to do. So they get scared and they don't go. Or some die so fast, they don't realize they've passed away and they're kind of stuck in a way where they're like, why are people ignoring me? Why can't I, move from where I'm at? Why can't I be seen? So.
Yeah. A lot of the stories on the show, a lot of the spirits that haunt it's like a sudden accident when something happens so quickly that it's like they almost don't realize that they're dead. Yeah.
It takes somebody to reach out and let them know if they really just don't understand what's happening.
What are some of the most memorable places that you've gone that have been I don't want to even say like either positive, but the most memorable for you that were impactful for you?
So I went with one of my medium students, Nicole, we went and did a little joint podcast thing for her at Yorktown Hospital in Texas, which was really fun. We stayed overnight and, had a really good time. It's supposed to be this spooky, weird kind of place. And it was like, oh, there's a lot of activity. My husband was in there researching it. Like, it's going to be really bad for you. It's going to be really bad. And I'm going to go. And I was like, okay, well, you can come with me. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't care. So let's just go. And it turned out like, yes, they had a lot of activity. It's stupid, right? Like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. But it wasn't as bad as people thought, right? Dude, I fell asleep I was like, yeah, we're going to sleep you're going to sleep in the building. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sleep in the building. It's fine. No big deal. Right. Had a magical and amazing moment from it. Right. But it was still fun. Right. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Right. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to hang out. No big deal. So I think that's probably like my most, it was my favorite place to go. That did have like a lot of things kind of going on. And I was like, oh, this is neat. I like it. But I don't know, wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So
yeah. Cause when you think of hospital, you think of like doom and sickness and sadness, but it ended up being more positive for you.
It was more positive for me, no matter how hard, like you can tell that some people like broke into the space and tried to do, silly, weird things in there. And I was just like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. It's not a thing. So yeah. It was fun. So I enjoyed that one, but I can definitely tell you, like, there's 2 places so far in Texas. I cannot stay longer than, the first place I never even made it inside. But they're in Austin specifically. There's a jazz place called the Elephant Room.
Oh, I've been there before.
It's a downstairs kind of little thing that you go down these little stairs. It's in the basement of something, right? It's got the windows and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't. I've tried twice going down. My husband loves jazz, and he was like, let's go to this place. I'm like, sure. And this was before. So the first time was before I understood what was going on. And the second time was after. So the first time we went down there, I maybe made it about 5 minutes before I went. I just said, I can't. I just left, sat outside. He was like, what's going on? I was like, I can't be in there. I'm nauseated. I don't feel good. I got the sweats immediately. It was like horrific. So I was like, nope, I'm not going there. So we tried again later. And he's like, now you've wrangled up, right? You've honed in your ability. Let's go back to this jazz place because I want to, go listen to some jazz. I was like, sure. I made it about 15 minutes. The mistake I made was actually walking further into the building and go to the bathroom. And I was like, I can't. Walked right back out, up the stairs, sat outside. I was like, you enjoy. I'll be here. I'll go somewhere else. I can't go in there. It's one of those weird places. So
was it too much energy or too negative?
So I still have yet to confirm, but I'm going to confirm it at some point. I'm about to do some history, but I think there was a fire there and the people were shut in and died inside.
Oh, shit.
And it was it's the consistent bombardment. They would come to me like kind of screaming and in pain. And I could feel like the energy of what was going on and I couldn't do it. It was just one of those crazy places. And the other place that I go to is like the Alamo. I have not made it in the door.
Oh, I can imagine.
I passed out the first time. And then the second time I got really close and I started like everything started spinning. I was like, I can't. And I just stayed in the car while everybody else went to go look. It was horrific.
Wow.
It was horrific. So those are the only two places I've been to where I'm just like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it.
So you have announced that you are no longer going to be on the Night Owl podcast.
Right. This is going to be the last season you're going to hear me on.
I'm very sad about that. But I did find out that you are starting another podcast. Can you tell us about that?
We are. So I started a space called Metaphysical You, and I have a group of practitioners that work with me and have been working with me since I started it. And we're going to get together and just do our own little podcast, really from the perspective of, mediums, psychics. This is not the perspective of somebody who's ghost hunting or whatever. We're going in, they're going, yeah, we know there's something in here. Let's figure this out. All right. That's kind of the perspective of it. And we're not there to like investigate and say something's here.
Right.
We're here to investigate and say something is here. Let's see what it is. Right. Yeah. Let's not assume that it's something negative, or let's not assume that it's something that you need to fear right now. Let's just go and see what happens. And also to understand that these are things that happen every day to everyone, right? This is not, we call it paranormal, but it really is just a normal part of who we are.
Yeah.
And some people are just more sensitive to it than others. And some people will learn their craft and some people won't. It just, it is, and some are blessedly, ignorance is bliss, right? They don't care. So it's one of those things that that we want to go in there and say, hey, this is a normal part of every day. This is not something that you should be fully fearing the way that, Hollywood likes to present it. It's just not that way. And then just talking to we want to talk to a bunch of different people who are in the field, who are like known mediums or known healers, or, that have different perceptions of what we do. Because the world of the metaphysical is so big, right? To include like aliens and things and cryptids, things that we don't
Oh, I am so excited about this.
She's lying. She hates aliens. No.
He hates aliens. Yeah, the podcast.
I'm the one who gets excited about the UFOs.
I love aliens too. I'm like a big alien fan. And then Jax Wolf, one of our practitioners, is a big cryptid fan. Like he loves his cryptids. Like that's
now I can get it. I can get on board with the cryptid.
Yeah,
the cryptid
he loves that. And he's also our, we all are big alien fans. Like, oh, this is a thing. It's got to be a thing, right? We got to do it.
Yeah.
So the podcast is called MP Unleashed. And it will have 4 of us on there, which is AJ Sanchez, Dee Dee Hawk, and Jax Wolf, and myself.
Very cool.
I'm excited to listen to that. So, sorry, Metaphysical You, is that your mentorship school?
Yes. So I opened that as a school or a place of learning for people to come. If they've got, if they understand that they have abilities, they can come. If they're new at all of this stuff and have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, they can come, right? That's kind of fun. If you're seasoned and you've been there forever, please come, right? I teach all foundations. So it's basically the basic, like underlining foundation of what you need to know for any metaphysical space, right? And then from there, you can jump out and do whatever it is that you need to do. But the foundations of everything is the same, no matter what you're working with whether you're working with a cryptid or you're working with an alien or working with a spirit, the foundation of it is the same. It's all about the energy and how you move it and how you feel it and how you can accept it. Right. So I didn't have a place like that to go to when I was developing. I got suckered out of a lot of money and a lot of things and a lot of time, and ended up finding out either I knew more than they did. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about, or they were just taking money just to take money. And I hated that. Right. So it was really having a place to give people who are starting out good information and enough to get them to go down rabbit holes and learn about themselves and learn about what they're doing and kind of get them excited about their ability to do this. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like a vulnerable space, like where grifters like can really sink their claws in to, and not always desperate people, but vulnerable people, who, if you're confident enough, right, you and don't have a conscience. Yeah.
Like that's true.
Yeah, that's tough. Where is Metaphysical You? Is it in person or is it online?
I offer an in-person development space starting in April. This was initially supposed to be in person because I started it right before COVID. Right?
Oh, timing.
Yeah, the timing was fantastic. Yeah. So pretty much everything we had to shift into an online fashion, and we've been online for years, right? Since 2020. So we've been able to hold classes like this. I do readings like this, that kind of stuff. I don't like it as much. So I've built in field trips that we can go to where we can all kind of meet and see each other. But the online lets me meet people from everywhere else in the country, right? That doesn't live in Austin. So it's kind of nice because I can get other people and see other people and they can still learn and in group, right? We group up and talk to each other and that kind of thing.
It's so important, the job that you're doing. Like, we've had a few mediums on the show, and I'm sure that I know, for example, Nicole, you're Nicole from the Real Ghost Of podcast, who we had on a SkeleTalk. You're her mentor, but what a treat and what a gift that you're able to help guide these people. I have a friend who I talk to who she's a medium in denial. And I'm just so happy to know now that you offer this, because I am emailing her as soon as we get off to be like, please contact Sara. She can guide you. Like, don't deny your abilities.
Do not deny your abilities. Yes.
One of the things Nicole talked about when she was on, and our other medium Dr. Jess when she was on. They talk about spirit guides. Is that something that you also have? And if so, how would you suggest somebody who maybe isn't a medium, like Alyssa and I, if we wanted to get in touch with our spirit guides?
We all have them, just to be clear. It's not just mediums and psychics, right? Everybody has them. In order for you to be able to meet or speak with them or be able to do it is to
meditate.
Make time to do that, right? Make time to do that and set an intention on what you're doing to bring them in. So the best way that I can tell you, especially if you're, if we're looking at Alyssa and we're looking at you, Brett, like, hey, I want to be able to meet my spirit guide. I will tell you, I want you to set an intention to meet your primary guide, right? This guide is very important. This guide has known you since before your light was sparked here, right? They're helping you stay on track for your life purpose, what you need to do, even if it's difficult for them to watch you go through something. If they know that it's for your life purpose, they're going to let you go through it, right? That's just kind of how it is. So think about how important that is. You task them with this. You make sure I do what I'm supposed to do in this lifetime. And they're watching you do this whole time. And you've trusted them that much. So you know them. You've known them this whole time. The idea is you just don't remember that you know them, right? Like, oh, okay, I didn't know you were there. So when you want to meet with them, you can do it in multiple ways, right? Meditation isn't like, sitting cross-legged, floating in the air like a swami, right? That's not what meditation is. Meditation is something simple, like if you're crafting, if you're drawing, if you're walking, if you're just taking some time to just do a little bit of breathing because you've had a hard day, or you love to cook and you're putting things together in your kitchen, right? Make some space for your primary guide to join you in that activity. Just set the intention and say, I would love you to come and join me in this activity. Help me here. If your idea of meditation is, I'm going to take a nap, hey, come take a nap with me. Let's take a nap. Maybe we can dream together. You can introduce yourself to me in sleep. Right? That's probably the best way to meet a guide because we don't have any reservations that we do here. And we're more consciously aware of what's going on. And then stay alert, right? You're going to see things, or things are going to be popping in your mind over and over again. Like maybe you'll get a consistent name or like a consistent color. You're constantly seeing it everywhere. Like, why am I seeing yellow everywhere? Right? Then go back and ask the guide, hey, is that yellow? Is that you? Right? You're going to get an affirmation. You're going to feel the yes. You're going to feel the no, right? You're going to know, but give yourself the time to meet this person, right? They know everything about you, but you don't know anything about them. Find out who they are and then just reach out that way. See how you're connected. Ask things like, what did you used to do? How do I know you? How do we know each other? Right? Ask those kinds of things while you're washing the dishes, folding clothes, whatever puts you into the zone where you're just concentrating on that one thing, right? You don't necessarily have to be sitting in silence, right? Staring at a candle all day. No, you don't have to do that.
This is helpful meditation. I feel like Alyssa and I could do that because we, walking, laundry. Yeah.
That
I like
flow
this
state.
idea of,
finding that.
Not necessarily having to find the time to like sit down and tell everybody to shut up so I can sit quietly to just, live life, just finding the space.
Quiet does not work for everybody. It doesn't work for me. The way that I meditate is in full chaos.
I love that quote. I meditate in full chaos.
Yep. There's no other way to do it.
So Alyssa and I are newbies at sort of this whole paranormal community. I mean, we've been doing the podcast for over, 2 years now, but I still would consider us a newbie. But what would you say to somebody who maybe isn't quote unquote a medium, but they do have some sensitivity? Does this just go back to the meditating, or would you recommend that we find?
I would say study like if you were, because everybody is wired to do this. Everybody, right? The only difference is that some people are just hyperactive into whatever it is because of trauma or because of our own contracts of doing something here in this lifetime that we need to do, right? But everybody's wired this way. We are all intuitive because it's part of our fight or flight. Right. So if you've ever heard anybody go, I'm an empath, you can just laugh at them and say, yes, so am I. Right. So the dog next door and the elephant that's over there in Africa. Right. They're all empathic because it's part of our fight or flight mechanism. Right. We used to, before we hunted across HEB and Trader Joe's, we hunted for our food. We depended on the land to give us signals. We depended on our animals, which you just heard mine get up right now, our animals to give us signals, for the plants to show us that there was something going on, to give us the shapes of things that we could eat or not eat, right? We had to survive somehow. And we also had to be connected to each other. There were no cell phones back then, right? We had to be able to have a way to reach out to the other person and say, hey, over here, or come back this way, or man, I'm dying, right? Like, hey, help me, right? The saber-toothed tiger got me, right? Like whatever it is, but you're able to be able to have that connection. Our connections were a lot clearer before we introduced cell phones and concrete. We still are wired that way. We're still coming into this world designed to be part of it, right? So we still have this. It's just about really understanding how that works, how your own body energy works, how you receive things. I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I became a massage therapist, and for some reason I feel like I'm going crazy, like I'm picking up all of these things. Of course, because you're picking up the energy of the clients. And then you go home with that because you don't know that you have to clear the energy out of your body, right? It's just a simple either visualization or something that you can do with water or something to just clean out that energy. And then you can go home and you won't feel like the way the client felt, right? Because you picked up all that information. So we're all wired and designed. I say to that person, come learn with us, right? We have a Wednesday night online Zoom that anybody can join. It's open to the public, right? It's free. You can come in, bring your questions, listen to us chit chat if you want to. Sometimes I throw games out there. We do silly things, but bring a good dad joke because I love good dad jokes, right? So just bring your best dad joke and, come and you can sit with us and join us. It's every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, right?
How can we find this and find Metaphysical You?
The Zoom link is online. It's on www.metaphysical.com. And if you go under services, you'll see development groups. And the first thing you're going to see is that Wednesday night catch up. And the Zoom link is right there. You can just join us any Wednesday and, sit down with us. Don't be shy. You're going to be like, I'm going to be on with a bunch of strangers. It's okay. Very, very accepting, right? Very accepting. Bring your questions, bring your silly things that you think might be silly. You sit and listen. It doesn't matter, but at least start to open up into that space. And then sometimes I'll give you books to read or challenges to do for that week. We'll give you like the card of the week. We have AJ that will join us and pulls a card, right? And he'll pull a card of the week. And just kind of give us something to think about while we're working from week to week. It's just the best time. So sometimes I lead the discussions or AJ Sanchez does. He's my other practitioner. And we'll just kind of go with the group and go in there. And my practitioners join, students join, random people join, right? We get random people that kind of join us all the time. So it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay. So besides your website, if somebody wanted to reach out for questions or mentorship, how else could they get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me. Well, all my information is on the website, but you can get in touch with me. You can email me directly at sarah.r.reeves@gmail.com, or you can definitely reach out to admin@metaphysicalu.com.
Okay. So at the end of our SkeleTalks, Alyssa and I ask one final question. Well, I'll ask the question, but we both want to know, what 3 objects would we need to bring to a seance to summon you from the afterlife?
To summon me from an afterlife, you'd have to definitely bring tequila.
Okay.
Right? And don't be bringing me no cheap ass tequila either. That's not going to do it, right? It's not going to do it. Do your research. Get a good bottle of silver because I am a silver fan, right? I don't like those reposados or all those. It's very rare that I drink those. I don't like those. So yeah, definitely that. You would definitely need to bring a representation of Keanu Reeves somehow.
I love. Right? I'm like, just gonna get Keanu.
Play the Matrix Keanu, movie, or or Speed or something, right? Like play something on there. The John Wick. Just have it running in the background. That kind of stuff. And then I would tell you probably the third thing is probably bring some water because after that tequila and
that's so practical I'm
gonna cool down a little bit. So yeah, bring some water. That's hydration. Dude, some electrolytes.
Well, water's a conduit too, right? That's what we've been told.
Yes. So bring some water. Definitely, most definitely.
All right, we're bringing Keanu. a huge ass bottle of silver tequila. Alyssa will have to pick out the label.
I
She
love
knows
tequila, but I like a reposado, so I'll have to do the research on the
Just do the silver. Just
The
take
silver.
your favorite reposado and just get the silver.
Okay, there's a couple,
All
but
you
yeah,
gotta do.
it's my
Yeah.
favorite. It's like my favorite thing.
I
to
love
drink.
this party. This will be great.
I mean,
Awesome.
Keanu Reeves is going to be there.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. And
Hell
he's
yeah.
gonna be there no matter what. Even if he's
matter
dead,
what.
he's coming with.
He's coming. All right, we'll make it
I'm
happen.
gonna be like, check out these chicks are playing your movie. Come here.
Oh, Sarah, this was an absolute treat. Like cherry on top of my year, month, 2 years. I love it. Thank you so, so much.
No, thank you for inviting me, reaching out, chit-chatting with me.
Yeah, it's
I
been
like it.
so fascinating. I like literally, I have to keep myself from asking more questions because I love it. So
You can ask, dude. I can do
interesting.
this all day. I'm good.
We're here for 5
I'm-
hours.
I love doing this.
Well, Sarah, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about tonight?
No, just I will haunt y'all later.
Hi, y'all later.
Haunt you later. Good night.